So I just recorded a whole video on a building tutorial. This building, okay? And the whole time it wasn't picking up any audio from my mic. So we're gonna do a new video similar to this one, based on a similar type of build. Alright, let's go! So the first part in making a good build is choosing the right color palette. Now, this one I used oak with spruce, some jungle accents, a granite roof with weathered copper in the middle. So I'm gonna choose a slightly different one for this next build. So we go spruce logs. I just want one. Give me some dark oak planks, stripped dark oak. Give me some deep slate and some bricks. Okay, so the first step to improve your building is a lot of people will just make flat walls. They'll have pillars in to add quote-unquote accents, but it's not doing anything because it's all flat in one surface. So to fix this, we simply bump the middle back, which adds depth. One of the most important things in building in Minecraft is depth. This creates an extra layer which we can texture onto. It adds a new level of flavor and deliciousness to the build, and it helps complete it a lot more. Another very important part is to be looking ahead. Now, usually with my builds, you like to do them odd so that the roof can, for an A-frames in particular, so that it can spike up on either side and meet at a point in the middle instead of a curved off rounded part. It's fine to make it even for like barns and stuff, but for houses that will be using the A-frame, you have to make it odd, or else it's not gonna look right. It's gonna look weirdly flattened out at the top. In this case, I'm gonna go 1, 2. This includes the pillars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we go right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, and pump this one up. All right. So we've got the pillars. I think these are in line. Yep, this should be good. Okay. Next step, after you have the pillars, would be to fill in the walls. And you can't just fill in the walls with a certain type. It makes it look bland and boring and hideous and awful, right? So, what we'll do instead is we will fill it in first with a solid block, but then what we will do is we will texture it. Okay, so there's a lot of ways to add texture. In this case, we're gonna add texture by going with a pattern. This is really the easiest way to do it if you're working with a wood surface. If you're working with a stone surface, particularly regular stone and not deep slate, it's very easy to texture it by adding in other gray blocks. For example, gravel or andesite or cobblestone. But for this one, we are using dark oak, and we'll texture it with stripped dark oak because it adds more depth and it adds some new shades of that same brown color into it. Okay, then we'll add this all the way around the build. And boom, boom. Alright, so we've got a nice textured surface to work with. Next step for me personally would be to add pillars. Not pillars, but like horizontal supports between the pillars, to provide a nice little outline for where the roof is going to go. Now once we have our base, the next step is going to be to choose a color palette for the roof. Now, I am going to go with deep slate, bricks, and spruce wood. And the biggest thing is to make sure that your roof is also textured. Not necessarily the outsides and the outlines, the skeleton of it, but the insides need to be textured so that they add and give off the same feel as the base below it. Usually I do this by just taking splotches and not necessarily doing a signified pattern, but taking bits and bobs out of it and replacing it with a similar block. For this one in particular, it's going to be with mud. With packed mud stairs, or not, mud brick stairs and mud bricks. Now all this is going to come together really nicely with spruce stairs, and we are going to make a similar A-frame to what we did with this one. So now for the roof, there's many different types of roofs we can do. There's this A-frame, which I'm going to do again because it's pretty much the most basic one to show you. There's different domed roofs, there's shorter, stoutier roofs, but this is generally the most basic one, and it's one of my favorites. To start off with the A-frame, we're going to put a solid block down, then put a stair on top of it, upside down stair, and repeat the process of putting solid block, stair, upside down stair, solid block, stair, upside down stair. And we're going to do this on both sides until it meets together in the middle at a point. So again, the same thing on the other side. Stair, block, upside down stair, block, stair, upside down stair. And we'll meet it at this one. And it'll come to a point where there'll be a 1 block gap in between them. Now this is where it's really important that you built it at an odd shape, because if it was not odd, then it would be a 2 block gap and these would come together as it is. Now with this one, you want to go upside down stair and then place a block on top of it. And then if you're feeling fancy, you can go and place another upside down stair there. But in particular, it's not my favorite, especially for more medieval builds. I might do that if I'm theming it sort of a Japanese type build, but for this one, it's not the way to go. Okay, I've gone ahead and copied the design on the other side. Now, we have these 2 frames. Now, all we need to do is connect them, which is pretty simple. You just continue each side over until they meet, and do the same on the other one. Okay, yes, you connect them there, and the last bit is connecting them at the top. Now, this one is optional. I would do it for a build like this, but I wouldn't do it if you're going for like a farm type build and a barn. If it's a smoother angle, I would usually not put this here, but if it's a sharp point like the A-frame, then I would recommend putting this here. Now that we have the frame for the roof, it's pretty simple. All we do is just fill it in, and like we did down below, I'm not going to do unlike we do down below, I'm not going to do a pattern. We're going to do splotches of the different types to add different colors and make it look like it's not particularly designed to be that way, but to where it has some character and some flavor in it. Okay, so the first side of the roof is done. Like I said, you don't want to do it in a specific pattern, because then you get this design which looks freaking sweet, where it's little patches and splotches of the different types instead of a complete pattern like this is. However, it does look really nice if you do the pattern down here and then do the splotches, because it provides a nice contrast. Now, I'm going to fill in the back of this, and then we can get started on some of these blank gaps in between here. Okay, so both sides are now done and textured. So now we're going to move on to this part. Now, what I usually like to do is take a different color palette and use that for these parts. Which, the first thing would be to continue these pillars up 1 block. Because once they're up 1 block, it looks like it comes to a stop instead of just abruptly ending. It comes to a gradual stop where it hits the roof and it's supposed to stop. But as I was saying, I like to go with a different color palette than down here. For example, what I want to do is stripped spruce with, let me think. Stripped spruce with a different type of wood. Maybe stripped spruce with like oak planks. And then put them in the same. I like to put the same, like the logs at the same spot as the logs down below. But then we're not gonna put them here. We're not gonna do that. We're gonna keep them out here on the pillar to add even more depth to the build. As you see here, it's out one and adds a nice angle, kind of a nice overhang. And it adds to the character, it adds to the flavor, it makes it even more delicious. And just like that, as you can see, it already looks a lot better with the different color palette. So I really like the stripped spruce with the oak planks, and makes it look like just, I don't know exactly how to put it, but it makes it look a lot cooler and a lot better looking, and it fits into the style that we're going for a lot smoother. Okay, so we've got all the walls in place. The next thing we need to do is to add depth to these walls. We have some, and it's a nice start. However, we need to add individual pieces of depth into these walls. And now, the way we're going to do that is by adding windows, is the first way. Probably the most important way. So we're going to go through and gradually sort of, it doesn't have to be identical. For example, these would make a little triangle shape. The goal is to add shapes into the windows, and to add little bits where it's not the same thing over and over and over again with these flat bits, but to add variation. I particularly like doing it with different levels. See, we'll put a door here. Actually, no, we'll put a door on this side and make more windows here. Already you can see just the level of depth that it has been added once we've added the windows and the holes. Now, there's a couple of ways you can fill the windows. There's a bunch of blocks that work well. My favorite particularly is doing both glass and fences, which is what we're going to do with this one. Now, to do this style of window, it's pretty simple and straightforward. What we're going to need is we're going to need to build a little box around them, because at least sometimes I would use the upstairs, but most cases in terms of using an A-frame house, it is too steep of a point to really utilize this upstairs area and cut it off into sufficient rooms. So this is just going to be the main space that we're going to use. And besides, I'm not going to do the interior in this video. That is going to be saved for a separate one if people want that. Anyways, with the window, what we want to do is to add a little box around the frame. And then simply we add the panes in the back and then the fences in the front. And already you can see it looks freaking sweet. They're especially good for doubled interiors, which again I will go over in another video on how to do doubled interiors. However, it's kind of too small to do them in this one. So I'm just going to place fences in here along the outside, or the inside, sorry. And it looks so great down below. And then I'm going to copy again the same design for the back window, which I go 2 out, make a base around it, and then fill it in. Glass panes, and then fences. And then ta-da, we get a nice window. Now, one of the last steps for adding more depth, because it's nice, we got some in place, but I really like rounding off my sections. Now, nether bricks is not going to be the way to go. I need to experiment with some different types of blocks. But what we need to do is to place stairs in the corners, really, to round off the different sections and help break it into two chunks right here. Instead of just flat squares, it makes it softer angles that we can work with. Okay, let's try spruce in here. Yeah, it's looking good. So we're gonna do this and copy it to every side, and then by doing so, it's going to provide a much smoother look on the angles. Instead of these sharp ones, it's gonna be rounded off and make for a much nicer surface to add texture to. Ta-da! Now, the next step is probably my favorite step, and that is trapdooring. Where we simply go around and place trapdoors. It's as simple as that. We kind of spam them anywhere that we can place them to where it looks presentable. But adding depth anywhere we can, even if it's as slim as a trapdoor, provides more character to the build and a better surface to work with. Okay, now I've gone ahead and placed trapdoors in front of all the windows, and then some, making a smoother transition and a less harsh acting on the pillars, but something in between that. So now we are pretty much done. The only things we have left to do is to add some foliage and some lighting to it, which firstly I'm going to add lighting. Say, it looks good, right? But it doesn't look good when I say time, set, night, because it drowns out. However, this one, once we add some light to it, let's see, lantern. If I add a couple dangling lanterns here and there, it just adds so much more. When I zoom out and I see light being emitted from the build, it sort of calls me to it. And then one of the last parts is adding greenery and foliage to this thing. So we're gonna first go around with some two tall high flowers, and then we're gonna bone the living heck out of this build. Boom, 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 bam. All right. See, that adds such a bigger level of welcomeness to the build, that this is somewhere where you want to be and it's calling you to it. Another part of building that goes pretty unnoticed is selecting the right door. Now, if I were to put any door here, it'd look okay, right? If I put a dark oak door here, it'd look pretty good. However, that's not the one I'm going to use because it does not add an extra pop of color where there can be one. For example, if I put the door there and it's a spruce door, it adds a lightness around it. And again, when I place the door, I place it out a block or in a block to add another layer of depth. Really, the trick is to add depth wherever you can. Alright guys, and with that, just a little path leading to it, this build is complete. Again, it's very simple things that will change the whole dynamic of a build and make it and turn it from going and looking horrible and bland, and not horrible, but bland and flat, into something that looks beautiful and intriguing. And with that, guys, I hope you enjoyed this sort of tutorial video. I plan on making some of these in the future if this one does well. Please like, subscribe, and guys, I will see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.